Well, hello there. Thanks so much for joining me once again. This is going to be a different video. It's not a capsule wardrobe video, but instead, I'm going to be showing you and giving you a full tour with a lot of detail about an efficiency apartment that I stayed in a small Tuscan town called Arezzo. And Arezzo is right on the main train line, which is hugely convenient. So you can spend about an hour and a half and end up in Rome, or you can head north about an hour and you're back in Florence, which is where I flew into because there is an airport in Florence. Of course, there's an airport in Rome. And this was a really convenient place for me to stay. The previous time I stayed in Arezzo, I actually rented an Airbnb, and that was really wonderful. And I enjoyed that very much, but it was not available for the time frame that I was visiting this time. So I decided to try out a different little place. So this little efficiency hotel is called Le Corniole, and it is about a 10-minute walk from the Arezzo train station. And it is on the train line, so you do have some train noise, but to be honest, it was not very terribly loud or congested or anything like that. I slept well. I didn't have any issues with that. Of course, I do take a sound machine with me, so maybe that helped. But the nice thing is they do provide the mocha pot that you see me using. They also provide coffee. They provide this nice boxed milk that they refreshed every day. I had a new carton of milk every day to be able to make my lattes. They also provide little cakes and tea cookies and those types of things. So it was really nice just to feel like I was staying in a really hospitable place. The cleaning staff was always very generous, checking to see if I needed anything. And it was just a really nice place to stay. I always felt extremely safe, and it just seemed like a very comfortable place that I could stay for multiple weeks at a time. So you can see that my mocha pot is just about finished making the morning coffee, which is going to be perfect so that we can get started on our little tour. So I'll be showing you the full kitchen shortly. I'll also be giving you a tour of the bathroom, talking about plugs, talking about converters, talking about adapters, talking about linens that are provided. And I'm even going to show you how the door locking mechanisms work because they are very different than what we use in North America. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started.
Well, hello there. I'm back now to give you a tour of my bathroom. And this is actually, I think, for European standards, a really nice bathroom, fairly modern. I do like the fact that the sink has a little bit more counter space than in some of the bathrooms that I've been in, but I really, really like this layout. Now, just like we have, of course, there's a mirror. I like that there's this little ledge for me to be able to place a few of my toiletries while I'm getting ready. And just like most hotels, I did have to use my trusty sink stopper because the plunger doesn't hold water in the sink very well. So since this is a standard item in my suitcase, it's no big deal, but I did have to use that here. Now, you may see that, so they do provide a hair dryer, and they use their plug, which is a little bit different than a US plug for those of you who are watching from the US. And that does fit into their socket. But because I am using some of my own appliances, I do actually have a converter. And I did have to use an adapter plug for this to be able to plug it into the wall like this. And that's where I use my curling iron. Now, my curling iron is actually dual voltage, but it doesn't have a switch on it. It just will work up to 220. The important thing with that for me is when I had used this before, the very first time I used my little curling iron, I was in Paris, and supposedly, this will work fine. It was rated for the higher voltage. It does actually, it says 100 to 240 volts. So the issue was when I just plug it into my converter plug and plug it into the wall, I saw sparks. So I decided that it would be a smarter idea to go ahead and use this handy dandy converter just to make sure that I didn't have any issues. So it's easy enough to plug that in. And then of course you plug your American plug or North American plug right in there. Okay. And then this works by turning one way or the other. And it's a very small flat iron, but it's just what I need to kind of help straighten my hair or slightly put a little bit of a wave in it. So that's how you use the converters and the adapters, the adapter plugs. Now, this is a bidet, and I know that this is a fairly controversial item. We don't have them very much in the United States in our bathrooms. This is the style, if I'm using bidet, this is the style I prefer because the water pressure that comes out is fairly soft. It's a lot like a sink or a bathtub where it's not high pressure water, and you're able to do what you need to do. And then here is fairly classic European toilet. The flush button is actually on the top, and there's usually a little button for number 1 and another button for number 2. And sometimes this will be a little bit lower. Sometimes it's up in the air, and then the actual flush button is here in the wall behind the toilet. Sometimes it's even a round, large button, almost like a saucer. So it's a little bit different. The other interesting thing is that you may notice that the water level is extremely low in the bottom of the toilet. We have water that fills up half of our toilet bowl. This doesn't work like that. In fact, there's only maybe 4 or 6 inches of water in the bottom of the toilet itself. So it actually doesn't flow up into the bowl. So this is the way it's supposed to be. Don't think that the toilet is broken. And then sometimes I find, especially in public bathrooms in Europe, sometimes they won't even actually have the lid or even the seat. So you may actually go into a public bathroom and there's no seat. And so ladies, just kind of be prepared for that. And also the bathrooms a lot of times are unisex, and especially in a small cafe or a small place in a medieval town like this, there may not be a men's and women's restroom. So be prepared to maybe have a toilet seat cover or use the toilet paper to cover the seat if necessary, especially if you need to sit down. Another thing is that toilet paper sometimes in European bathrooms is a lot like the napkin dispensers at ice cream parlors. If you know what I'm talking about, I think in Spanish they're called servilletas. They're just little napkins almost. So, of course, it is toilet paper. It's different. It's not always on a roll. Now, in some hotels, there is toilet paper on a roll. This particular establishment has more of the servietta style toilet paper. But either way, sometimes in some European bathrooms, there is no toilet paper, just like anywhere. I mean, in the States, you go to a mall or something and use a public restroom and, there doesn't happen to be toilet paper. Everything's been used. So just be mindful and make sure that you have a package of tissues in your pocket or in your purse because you may need it. Okay, so here is the bathtub / shower. Now this is actually a rarity. I have not been in many bathrooms in hotels even where there's actually a bathtub and a shower. A lot of times it's just a stand-up shower, and they're typically quite small. In actually the last Airbnb I stayed in Arezzo, it was like that. Here, it is surprising to see an actual bathtub, and this style of shower head seems to be very common. I think almost every shower that I have had or bath in Europe, I've had this style versus like what we have, where there's just a faucet or a spigot coming out at the top, and then your handles here at the bottom. Again, now I've only showered since I've been here. I wasn't using this as a bathtub, but again, you know, not knowing how well the plug in the tub works. If you do like taking baths, this is another reason to make sure you bring one of these with you because you may need it. Another really important thing to talk about, especially for North Americans or Americans, I can speak about, is the towels, the linens that are provided in many European hotels or Airbnbs. It's not common for Europeans to use what we call washcloths. And so it's very strange for some Americans when they're traveling to not have a washcloth to bathe with. So the typical towel that we're provided is like a normal bath towel, like a bath sheet. And then also you're provided with I don't know, this is not quite a hand towel size, but this I think is more to be used with the bidet. I typically will use this as my hand towel. And then, of course, you are provided with a bath mat to be able to step in and out of the tub safely on, but there are no, actually, here's the, okay, so this is the smallest towel that you're provided, so it's not a washcloth size. So I actually make sure when I'm coming to Europe that I have something that I can wash my face and my body with. And these little items just go in my soap case. And with that in mind, you want to make sure that these are dry before you close the lid. Maybe the night before I'm traveling, especially if I'm traveling early in the morning, instead of washing my face using these things that will need to dry, I'll take my bath or shower the night before so that these can dry overnight. And to wash my face, I'll use one of these face wipes. And the same would go with a washcloth. If you wanted to bring a washcloth with you, you may want to make sure that you either have a Ziploc bag or some kind of a mesh bag so that it would dry in your luggage without getting soured or stinky by the time you get to your next destination. I hope that's helpful. Now let's take a look at where you typically store your clothing. So most European homes don't have closets like we have in America. So there's not a whole lot of built-ins. In fact, everything is more external. So we'll have a chifforobe or wardrobe. You'd have a dresser. You would have in the kitchen, all of your cabinets are attached to the wall. You wouldn't have a walk-in pantry. That's just not as common from what I have seen. So what I really like about this location is that even though these are a little bit tall for me because I'm 5'3" on a good day, it is a little bit hard for me to reach this, but it's just enough that I can hang the clothing items that I have. And then there's storage below. And then this side happens to have shelving. Now, this particular room did not have a dresser. So I have my underclothes and my socks easily accessible in a packing cube in my suitcase, which is in the bedroom. So that's still perfectly fine. Now, a lot of times in Airbnb in a hotel, unless you're maybe staying in a really nice 5-star, very expensive hotel, what I have found is that there are not a lot of hangers provided. And if there are hangers provided, it seems like they're either hangers that people have left here, or they're just kind of random hangers that don't even match. And sometimes there really aren't hangers in the room, or not very many. And in this case, I only have 4 hangers here in this particular room. So you may remember that I always travel with hangers, and this is one of the reasons why. So these are travel hangers, and I will link them below. They fold up very flat and very tiny, but they do fold out into a full-size hanger. And this size does fit the hanging bar in this particular location. Now, you may remember in a previous video, I talk about bringing S-hooks with me. And I do have a larger S-hook that I bring for situations where the hanging bar might be chubbier, and these hangers can't hook around that. Instead, I will use the S-hook and then hang my hangers from the S-hook, which seems a bit convoluted, but in a pinch, if you have no other choice, but you still want to hang your clothing so that you don't look like a wrinkled mess, this is extremely helpful. I also like this because I'm able to store my backpack in here, and it keeps all of my things very tidy. So another nice thing about this particular location, this is the first time I've seen this, is that the keys are left in here. So this would be a little bit of extra security for you. You could actually lock this during the day and take the key with you. And so there's just a little bit of added benefit there. Let's move on into the kitchen. Let's talk about security and a door, and when you first come into a hotel room. So in a lot of cases in European and now American hotels are doing this as well, you're having to put your key card into the slot here in order for your electricity in the room to work. Now, the other thing that this particular hotel comes with, as well as several Airbnbs that I've stayed in, is that it also has an actual key. Now, it's important to note that the locks are different here. And actually, this is your security lock. There goes the lights. Okay, so this is your security lock. And I may have already, yeah, I actually undid it already. Okay, so it just barely turns one way or the other. You can hear that. And when you turn it, do you see the security? So it's almost like a chain lock on the hotel door. It's just a little bit different. So you just do that by carefully turning this left or right. Now, the locks are different. In the US, I know when I lock my door, I just turn it one time until I hear the deadbolt actually pass over and into the hole on the other side. This is slightly different. And hopefully you can see this, and I'll do a film of this. There are multiple, there is that security lock, but then here there are multiple locks that come out in the door. Hopefully you can see that. If not, I'll do some B-roll. And there's even a small or another lock at the very bottom. So you'll want to make sure when you lock your door, especially if you're staying in a place like this, where like an Airbnb or an efficiency, you want to make sure that you turn this multiple times until it stops. So in this case, 1, 2, I'm having to turn that 2 times to engage all of those locks so that it secures my room. This is important also when you leave, because I know some tourists who have actually turned their locking mechanism the same way they do at home, and they've actually left their room open, or it has not secured the door completely, so it's easy enough to kick the door, especially in Airbnb, kick the door, and a theft could occur. So just make sure that you secure your room properly. Now I forgot. There it is. Anyway, so you'll notice here that you're not supposed to touch or bother this. And I imagine it's because this is your heating here. So if you turn this off, you're also turning this off. And even though there's a plug here, I've also decided I would not even use the plug because I just don't want there to be interference at all with my heating, or don't want to blow a breaker or fuse or something like that. Okay, so moving on to the actual kitchen. So I did some other video the other day of the kitchen. I just want to show you that this is an efficiency in an apartment. So it's just like an Airbnb anywhere else I've stayed. You have silverware and some cooking things provided. And for me, especially, I'm happy that they have proper knives here, which is a huge game changer. Just the fact that they have a actual chef's knife here and it's decent quality is really nice. They have bottle openers, wine key, and just some basic silverware, along with the cute little spoons for the espresso. Now, this is a gas-powered range. If you don't know how to use a gas-powered range, you may want to look that up, but it's simple enough that you push down and when it's clicking, and then you turn and you just let it go for a couple seconds and then release, and the flame stays. And you turn it off by literally turning it back to where it started. And it's actually rare to have an oven and a 4-burner stove. I have stayed in places before where I just have 2 burners, so it's really nice to have a full kitchen here. And they do provide you with a mocha pot, so you can make coffee in the morning, which is very easy to do. They also provided ground espresso coffee, and they provide sugar and tea as well. And then this is a mini dishwasher, little 18-inch dishwasher, which is great. I've already done my dishes this morning, and there really isn't an explanation of how to use this, but I just kind of figured it out. So it's not a huge learning curve there. And then they do have, food storage if you desire that, and plenty of, you could stay here for many weeks and have plenty of places to put things. This really neat device. And this is where, if you wash your dishware, you can set them here at the side of the sink, but you can also put them up here and the water drains into the sink. It's just a really, really neat and classic European setup. Now, the refrigerator is a small fridge, but it does the job, and I was able to put 4 to 5 days worth of groceries in there with no problem. The other nice thing is this does have a working freezer, which I also really appreciate. And then they do provide you with your basic needs for cooking. So there's colanders down here. There's some pots and pans. I always choose to use the stainless steel when possible. They have a lot of non-stick kind of stuff down there, but it's all scraped. So if you're concerned about consuming chemicals and those types of things, just be mindful that you may have to figure out alternative cooking methods if there isn't a stainless steel pot available. So we're almost finished with the kitchen tour. In this particular apartment. They do have a nice sized table. I've been using that to plan my day out every day. And then something else that is a real bonus, even though the view is not fabulous because I am located quite near the railroad tracks, I do have a patio. And on that patio is actually the drying rack for my laundry, and then there's a tiny chair. So I've actually been able to take my coffee, my tea, or a glass of wine out onto the patio in the evening. So that wraps up my room tour. And this cute little place is called Le Corniole, and it is a small apartment hotel that is located about 10 minutes walking distance from the Arezzo train station. So it's super close, really easy to find, and the staff are lovely, and I would absolutely stay here again and look forward to being able to come back and spend more time here. So take care. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.